Hi everyone, welcome to THT, and today we got some very exciting news. Yesterday, FFG blessed us with a whole lot of information about the upcoming set Shadow of the Galaxy. So, a couple of basic information first. The set will have 262 cards. It will be released on the July 12th, 2024, with we assuming the pre-release 1 week before on the July 5th. And it will have 3 new mechanics: bounty, capture, and smuggle. So this is very exciting. I was not expecting to have new information about the set so soon. It's not even a month before the release of Spark of the Rebellion, and I've been very known in the community for giving first impressions about every single card that were spoiled during the spoiler season, and I intend to carry this tradition, but this time on my YouTube channel, which hopefully will be a little bit more enjoyable for people to watch, and also a bit more convenient for me to do, since talking is less time consuming than writing. So first of all, a few impressions about the basic informations. This is going to be an even bigger set than Spark of Rebellion, which is very surprising because normally first sets are always bigger than expansion sets usually. The release date, we already kind of knew about this, so no much surprise. And about the 3 new mechanics, the bounty mechanic is basically something that it's a bonus that you get when a unit is either defeated or captured. So whenever a unit with bounty is killed, is defeated by you, the person who played the bounty card gets the reward. We'll explore this in more details as we get into cards that actually have this mechanic. And capture is kind of like the same as in Magic, where a card like Oblivion Ring that can exile a unit for a temporary amount of time. And as soon as the card disappears, the card comes back into play. So it's very interesting, of course. And then the smuggle mechanic we don't know anything about so far. So without further ado, let's go into the different card that have been revealed. So right now we are only seeing the starter cards. And first, of course, we have 2 new leaders. So the idea, of course, of those first impression is to give you really first impression analysis about those different cards, how they're going to play, how strong they are compared to what we've seen. But obviously, bear in mind that I've never played with any of those cards, and so obviously there's a lot of things that changes when you actually get to play those cards. In real, there is so much you can do from a purely theoretical standpoint. And the second thing to keep in mind is that the amount of card in Star Wars Unlimited is going to more than double by the end of when we spoil every single card in Shadow of the Galaxy. So that means that there's going to be so many new cards being added to the game that the game is going to be completely shaken, and it's going to be very difficult to know by that time. Like, it's going to be very difficult to make predictions because the meta and the is going to be completely transformed. So the best I can do is just compare it to what we have and see how it plays out. But obviously, take everything I say with a big grain of salt. Not much of what I'm going to talk about is going to be relevant by the end of when we get all the cards, because the environment is going to change so much. And obviously, you never want to analyze cards in a vacuum. I'm hoping that as we get more spoilers, my analysis are going to be a little bit more precise and a bit more relevant as we move forward, as it was also the case in Spark of the Rebellion. But for the first few spoilers, it's going to be very rough because we don't know much. So the first leader is Moff Gideon. Another thing as well is, like, I'm not going to read the cards. I'm just going to make the assumption that you've already read the card and you know what they do. If you forgot anything, all the abilities is on the screen. So Moff Gideon is what I consider to be a very aggro leader. He has an ability that is free, that push more damage. And all you need to do is have a unit that costs 3 or less for you to use that ability. So it's a very aggressive ability, and I think Moff Gideon is looking to be the best aggro leader for villainy that we've seen so far. Simply because aggro villainy has not really been a thing in Spark of the Rebellion. All we got was the very weak IG-88 and to some extent Gram of Taken, but Gram of Taken is a lot slower than this card because you have to pay 1 resources, then you get the experience token, your opponent gets an opportunity to interact with that, and then even when that happens, and then you get to attack, and it's a much slower ability. While this is, you get an attack right away, and it's free, which is very good for an aggro deck, and it's relatively unconditional. Just having a ready unit that costs 3 or less is going to be a very easy condition to meet. So a pretty vanilla, pretty powerful, generally powerful aggressive ability. And then on the leader side, he gets a 3/6, which is not great. Usually you would want a leader at 5 to be at least 4/6. Overwhelm is not super relevant for a unit that has such a low attack value. However, being able to give Overwhelm to all the other units that cost 3 or less, that is very relevant. And obviously you still have the +1 attack ability. Is also Imperial and Officials, which are 2 very relevant traits. So overall, I'm a very big fan of the leader ability. I think the leader ability is very strong. The leader unit himself is a little bit is a bit more underwhelming. Is a bit underwhelming in my opinion. 6 defense is good because you can dodge takedown. But the 3 attack is not super impressive. Yeah, I think the unit would have been a lot better if it had +1 attack and no overwhelm, for example. But still pretty decent. Still very decent. One thing I don't really like about the leader at the moment is like green-black is not really a good color for aggro. Generally speaking, there's not a lot of great aggro. There's not a lot of great aggro mechanics or very like green-black is really not an aggro color in the current stage of the game. Obviously, this could change, and this is very likely to change with all the new cards that we're gonna get. So, very excited for this leader. Definitely, it's nice to have a real strong aggro leader for villainy. In Spark of Rebellion, the only way to build an aggro villainy deck is with a Boba red deck, which is pretty boring because Boba is kind of everywhere. While here, this gives you like another option for an aggro leader that I think is very viable. And the ability is infinitely better than what you get from IG-88, and it's, I think, in the context of an aggro deck, it's also better than Tarkin. The other leader we get from the starter set is the Mandalorian. So his ability is a lot more innovative compared to what we've seen so far. Every time you play an upgrade, you get to exhaust something that has 4 or less HP. I think this is a pretty strong ability because it's completely free, doesn't require any action, and obviously if you build around this, it can be very impactful. We've seen a lot of very strong, like cheap, relatively strong cheap upgrades, like for example snapshot reflexes, or even the compartment, the +1/+1 upgrade for vehicle. I forgot the name. So I'm pretty confident that this is going to be a pretty strong ability. With that being said, it is really much more of a build around leader, while the Moff Gideon is most likely going to be something along the lines of just a generic aggressive leader. The Mandalorian, you're going to have to build around him a lot more to really take full advantage of him. And if you can do that, I think it can be a pretty strong leader, because free abilities to exhaust enemy unit is, in my opinion, very impactful. So I can see this in some sort of tempo aggro deck that plays upgrades. I think that can be a pretty good archetype. At the moment, Cunning Heroism is one of the weakest. It is the weakest aspect combination in the game, but once again, this could very well change with Shadow of the Galaxy. So the leader himself is nothing to be super excited about. It's basically just a Boba that costs 1 more. We've seen multiple leaders that have 4, 7 for 6, which is a pretty standard stat line. The ability becomes a little bit more powerful because it can exhaust things that cost 6 or less. That has 6 or less remaining HP. So the ability becomes stronger, but it is nothing that is particularly crazy, and you can use the ability multiple times a turn. While as a leader, you can only use it once per turn. So yeah, the leader unit is pretty average. I would say I have the same. It gives me the same vibe as Moff Gideon, a pretty strong leader ability, but not a very super powerful leader unit. But the big difference between the two is like the Mandalorian is going to require a lot more. You're going to need to build around him a lot more. Moving on, we got the calculated lethality, which is the new a new removal event for the blue villainy archetype. As you know, blue villainy already has tons of removal between Power of the Dark Side, Takedown, and all that stuff. Personally, I don't see this card seeing a lot of play because I think that there's not a lot of space for more removal in those colors between Power of the Dark Side and Takedown. I think Takedown is better than this card. Takedown just kills more things. And the benefit of being able to put experience token for defeating upgrades seems very situational, because not only you need to kill something that has an upgrade on it, you also need to have a unit in which you can give experience token to. And that's not super situational. Like, it's gonna happen every once in a while. Like, for example, you're gonna find turn 1 a Battlefield Marine, turn 2 Wing Leader, put some upgrade on it, and then you can kill that for 4. But you can also do this with a Takedown. Takedown is just much more flexible because you can affect Leader as well, and it kills much bigger things in general. So it is an additional option. It is something that I can definitely see being played in competitive. So it's not a bad card at all. But I think it's going to be a very niche card. I think most of the time people are going to be preferring to play Takedown as a 4 resources removal. Then we got Razor Crest, which is a 3/4 for 4 Restore 2, which we already have a card like this in the game, but it is a ground vehicle instead of a space vehicle, and this makes a huge difference because space units are always have always stats which are lower than ground units. So what a 3/4 on the ground is actually pretty mediocre, while a 3/4 in space can actually kill a lot of stuff. Once again, with the current card pool, 3/4, it kills the A-Wing, kills the X-Wing, kills the Arc 170, kills all the 2 jobs you can think of, while staying alive. And the ability to restore, and the fact that it's a space unit makes it harder to interact with, so he's going to be able to get that restore over and over and over and over again, over multiple course. It also has an immediate impact on the game, which is great for a card that costs 4. Gonna get back into your hand. If you play a lot of upgrades, that can be good. It's going to be very good with Isia because you can come into play, ambush right away, get the restore right away. So very good with Energy Conversion Lab. So I think it's a solid card. It's not amazing, and you're probably gonna need some cheap upgrades that you need to get back from it for this card to be worth it. I don't think just as a 3/4 Restore 2 in space for 4, I don't think that's going to be good enough for the card to see play. But if you can find a way to get the upgrades back into your hand relatively consistently, I think the card becomes quite good. So yeah, no, I think it's a decent card. Then we got Phase 3 Dark Trooper. I think this card is kind of a strictly better version of Cell Block Guard. It is a trooper, it is Imperial, just like the Cell Block Guard, and it is villainy, which means you can take it from Darth Vader. Obviously, it's a little bit more niche because it's for green black. Not everybody deck plays green black, even though in the current stage of the game, almost every villainy deck is green black. So yeah, if this card was in today's deck, it would basically replace every single copies of Cell Block Guard. So Cell Block Guard is not gonna see a lot of play in the new after the new expansion, because this card is just literally strictly better. So the ability is whenever it deals combat damage to a unit, it gets experience. So keep in mind this is combat damage, meaning that it's damage dealt by other units during combat. So it's very specific. So the ability obviously is not very strong. but it doesn't need to. It's just a 3/3 Sentinel for 3, and that's enough for this card to be good. It's not Echo-based Defender, but it is better than Sublord Guard, and you can pull it from Vader, and that's all that matters. So it's a pretty solid card, and it's gonna see play for sure. Unless they decide to release something even better in the expansion. So some people are gonna scream, "Oh, power creep!" right from set 1. This card does have a double aspect requirement, so I don't think it's a real power creep. I still think Sublord Guards can have applications in the game, even with this card being there. Next, we got probably one of the most anticipated character for this expansion, like Grou, the fan favorite. This card looks really strong. First of all, it has a force unit that costs 2, which is very rare. The only other unit that we have that is so cheap and has a force trait is Guardian of the Whale. But Guardian of the Whale is a 2/2 for 2 that is extremely easy to kill. Grogu is going to be a lot more difficult to get rid of with his 5 health. So and yeah, having a force enabler so early in the game is going to be super impactful. The only problem right now is that most of the force payoff and enablers that we've seen are either most of the force enabler we've seen are in blue, and most of the force payoff that we've seen are in red, with fourth throw notably. So it's a little bit, the color combination here is a little bit awkward for a force-oriented deck. But obviously, let's see what they decide to print. I'm excited to see them showing off new force payoff in different colors. So, and if that's the case, then Grogu is going to be super impactful because it's going to be early force unit that's going to be very hard to get rid of. The ability is not bad at all. Being able to exhaust an enemy unit for free, I think, is very valuable, and being able to do it again and again and again every turn is going to be super strong. So, in my opinion, Grogu is the strongest card that we've seen in the starter preview. I think it's the card that I think has the most potential. It's very powerful, being able to exhaust enemy units for absolutely for free and multiple times a turn. It's a very solid turn 1 play. Cunning Heroism is definitely it's also really good for carrying upgrades. You can put upgrades on it very easily. Careful of traders, of course. But yeah, I think it's a really good card. Next we have Wanted, which is probably the most unique card that we've seen here from this starter preview. And this card basically reads you put the attached unit gets bounty. So when this unit gets killed by the opponent, you get to collect the bounty. So bounty is kind of a negative keyword that you're giving to an enemy unit, to a unit. But I think you can place it on your own unit. Oh no, it doesn't work. If you cannot, if you place it on your own unit, then the opponent will get the bounty. Okay. So yeah, you have to place it on the enemy units. So, and it allows you to ready 2 friendly resources for 0. So basically, this kind of gives you the Boba Fett ability, but for everybody, like, which I think is impactful. I think Boba's ability is not necessarily the most powerful thing about Boba, but it is something that I think can be very impactful. Let's say you place this for 0, then you play Takedown, you untap 2, and you can play a 2-drop alongside this. This does cost you a card. Card disadvantage is not a massive problem in Star Wars Unlimited, but it's still something you have to be worried about. I don't think this is a card you're going to be able to jam in any deck. I think you're going to have some sort of build around this card for this to work. But the fact that it costs 0 I think is going to be very impactful. Obviously, in a Mandalorian deck, this sounds very good. You tap a unit for 0, and then you get the bounty that you get to use later on, or even on the same turn. Sounds pretty strong. So I think the card looks really, really good, and I think there's probably going to be tons of synergies around that card in the set. So very excited to see what they want to do. Next we got Gideon's Light Cruiser, which is a card that really reminds me of the Home one, a big spaceship in space that costs 8 and allows you to bring back a card from your discard pile and play it for free. that cost 3 or less and play for free. So the few differences here, it's a 7-8 overwhelm instead of 7-7 restore 2. It doesn't give restore 1 to all the other units. It's obviously in a completely different color combination. And it doesn't give you a discount on the price. It just strictly allows you to play something that costs 3 or less. But this card can be played from your hand, which is a bit more flexible. But for all intents and purposes, it's going to be very close to Home 1 in terms of what its role is going to be. It's going to be adding like this kind of very powerful late game card. So this is a card that is obviously only triggers the ability when Gideon's is your leader, whether it's a leader or unit, so same mechanic as for Fire Spray. And in this case, I believe this is a little bit awkward because I feel like Gideon wants to be an aggro leader. Like when I read Gideon, to me this screams aggro. And Ganlight Cruiser doesn't seem to be the kind of card that I would want to play in an aggro deck. It's very expensive. It doesn't have an immediate way to deal damage to the opponent. So for me, this is not a card that is meant to be played in an aggro deck. So if Gideon ends up being kind of a mid-range or even a control leader, which is possible, I guess, because a +1 attack, I guess, can be used as a way to clean enemy units, then I can see this card being very good. But it seems to be going against what the leader wants you to do, which is a bit weird. So I don't, as a result, I'm not super excited about this because of that problem, that kind of that disconnect here between the leader and obviously this card without the ability is trash. So if you don't play Gideon as your leader, the ability is completely trash. So last but not least, so we have the Mandalorian Rifle. That is basically the +3 attack +0. The +3 attack +0 health that allows you to capture when it comes into play, specifically when it is equipped to the Mandalorian. I'm not super excited about this because the problem is like it's really putting all of your eggs in the same basket. So expensive upgrades are very difficult to play in this game because they're really risky most of the time. If you're going to find an answer to them, it really sets you back a lot. Obviously, on your leader, they are a little bit safer because obviously they are a little bit safer because your leader is more difficult to interact with. So yeah, obviously this card is. I don't think this card is very playable. I don't know why this card is only heroism because I don't see this card being played outside of the Mandalorian specifically, and the Mandalorian is cunning heroism, so there's really no point of this card being only heroism. It has an immediate impact on the game. The problem is when the opponent kills the Mandalorian, not only does he get rid of the upgrade, gets rid of the leader, but also gets back the unit into play. Is going to get his unit back as well. And the problem of the upgrade is that it doesn't help the Mandalorian to survive. It only gives him plus all health. So maybe it would be too strong if it was giving a health bonus as well. So I'm a bit hesitant on that card. I think there's definitely going to be some situation where it's going to be super strong, but it's going to be quite situational because there needs to be a unit to capture. There needs to be your leader needs to be in play. You need to be confident that your leader is not going to get killed anytime soon because otherwise it's a big investment that is thrown out the window. So yeah, I can see this card seeing play, but I think it's going to be fairly situational. I don't think it's going to be like a super big staple. But we'll see. Because typically, once again, expensive upgrades are just very difficult to play. Another card has been spoiled in the meantime. I just would like to get into it. I didn't prepare anything. I'm just going to go on the Discord and go on the preview. There you go. So, yeah. So going into the Mandalorian, the legendary unit, and as you can see, he's very similar to Obi-Wan, as he's a big 6-drop that has Sentinel. The difference is that he has +1 attack, which is definitely relevant, and he has an immediate impact on the game as It allows you to heal and put 2 shield on unit that cost 2 or less. The heal is almost irrelevant. Very rarely are you going to have a damage 2-drop unit into play. However, the double shield is pretty relevant. Obviously, 2-drops are usually not really the card that you want to protect, but if you have a deck in which you want to protect a specific 2-drop, then it's very strong. So, is it better? It is the when playability is definitely a lot worse than the when defeatability of Obi-Wan. We'll see how playable that is compared to Obi-Wan. For now, I prefer Obi-Wan, I think, because I think his when defeatability is just a lot stronger, and the -1 health is really not that big of a deal. He's also force, which is a big keyword trait. But obviously, if we see some powerful 2-drops being introduced, that's something that you would like to protect. Then suddenly the card becomes a lot more attractive. So I think this is all the card that we've seen for now. What I'm gonna do is that I'll probably be doing other videos like this when spoilers are done, but I'm probably going to be waiting until we get like about 10 new cards. So here there were 4, 7, 8, 9 plus the Mandalorian unit. That's basically 10. So next time we get 10 spoilers, I'll do a video like this again. And hopefully you guys enjoyed those first impressions. And I'll see you next time for another video. If you enjoyed that, please like and subscribe. I'm probably missed something. Of course, those first impressions, I'm very much kind of almost discovering the card. I've read them before, but it's very early impressions. So if I missed anything about the card, if there's something you would like to add, feel free to put it on the comments below. Thank you very much, and see you next time.